Aloha, beautiful beings, and welcome to another episode of the Yoni Havana Podcast, where we explore consciousness, looking into how things work in the universe so we can enjoy life more and become more whole. Before we dive into today's show, I'd like to invite you to explore two experiences that I'm passionate about. First, I'm excited to announce a brand new product that I recently launched with my mentor, Dr. Aubrey Degnan. It is called Arising Awareness Sessions. If you're on a path of self-discovery and seeking a deeper connection, these sessions are for you. Ideal for those feeling stuck in personal growth, navigating inner work alone, seeking connection with like-minded individuals, or curious about enlightenment. Arising Awareness Sessions help you connect with your inner nature and realize the wisdom of oneness. These sessions include meditations, breathwork, collective vulnerable shares, individual deep dives, and spiritual teachings. Through self-observation, thought awareness, and mind quieting, you'll cultivate a deeper understanding of yourself and the present moment. Benefits include healing emotional, psychological, and physical trauma, reducing stress, expanding consciousness, and enhancing your overall well-being. You gain a sense of purpose, strengthen relationships, and align with your soul's mission. Visit our website, arisingawareness.net, to start your transformative journey. Second, if you're a man ready to transform your life and connect with your authentic self, I want to invite you to the Men of Integrity Retreats, a profound 4-day journey towards authentic manhood. Led by Michael Tierno and me, Yoni Havana, these retreats help men embrace integrity, heal past wounds, and build a supportive community. Discover what it means to be a man of integrity, taking responsibility, speaking kindly, acting with honor, and embracing vulnerability. Our retreats include deep dives into personal growth, ceremonies for healing, and workshops on lifelong learning. Connect with like-minded men and become a better husband, father, and leader. Visit our website, moi.community, to learn more and take the first step towards your next evolution. In today's show, we have an enlightening conversation with Cecilie Stabell, a sound and energy healer, master metaphysician, author, podcast host, and performance coach. In this episode, Cecilie shared her kundalini awakening experience at a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, her process of alchemizing people's pain as a healer, her encounter with the Council of 12, why focusing on our bodies is key to higher levels of consciousness, and much more. If you find value in this conversation, please share it with someone you love. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this illuminating conversation with Cecilie Stabell. Aho. Cecilie, thank you for coming on to the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I think we met about 3-4 weeks ago in my house in Georgia.
Yes, that's right.
Which I didn't know you were coming, but I knew somebody was coming kind of last minute, which was an amazing rendezvous created by the divine, and we connected quite deeply, very quickly. And here we are recording a podcast, and you're about to launch your own podcast very soon. Tell me, let's start there and tell the audience about the podcast you're launching.
It's called the Intellect and Intuition Podcast, and it's really like Eastern and Western medicine kind of merging. I've had about 10 years in the nutrition, biohacking segment, and then after a while, when you kind of dove down a lot of those different rabbit holes, I had a spiritual awakening about 1.5 years ago. I've meditated for many years and been open to this kind of stuff, but it was just a new way, going a lot deeper. So, and I think that in both these kind of fields, people can get very myopic about it. It's like, it's only love and light, and I'm a starseed, and I'm a light worker, or it's like the hardcore biohacker on the other one, and where everything needs to be quantified. And I kind of want to merge these two worlds because I think, I think we can become even better performers if we include both of these segments. So that's really what the podcast is about. I'm going to bring on experts from north and south, east and west, and we're going to just explore a lot of different topics within the health and spirituality field.
Very cool. And so
Yeah.
we met through a mutual friend who is into the Dr. Joe Dispenza work. And so, if I'm not mistaken, you've been to at least one retreat. I'd love to hear about your experience with the Dr. Joe Dispenza work.
I've actually been to 8 retreats, I think, in the past 1.5
Whoa.
years. I had,
Wow.
yeah, you've probably been to a retreat as well, I'm guessing.
Just one.
Oh, okay, yeah, but you know what it's about, yeah. So
Yes.
I was sick with a heavy metal poisoning for about 8 years, between 18 and 26. So after my body was back to health, but I had never experienced being an adult without being sick. So then I read Dr. Joe's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, because I wanted to make sure that I created my reality very consciously when I came back to life. Um,
Mm.
so after reading that book, I started kind of implementing the different things. And then I listened to a few of his podcasts, no, a few of his meditations, but I was just, I've been used to doing transcendental meditation, which is you meditate on a mantra, you focus on the third eye, whereas Joe's meditations, they're a lot more intense. So I was like, what is this thing? This guy's screaming at me. Like, what's going on? So I actually found another lady on YouTube and started meditating with her, one of Joe's meditations, one of his most popular ones, The Blessing of the Energy Centers. But
Mhm.
I still kind of just was very intrigued by this retreat. And I think I might not have gone had I known before and how much meditation it was going to be.
Mhm.
But it was, I'm so happy I went. And the first day, the first meditation, I had what we call a kundalini awakening, which was
Oh.
really, I've had similar experiences where the body kind of starts moving involuntarily when we have energy moving through the body, which can look like convulsion or almost like a seizure or an orgasm. And I've had that before working with like a shaman, not with any plant medicine, but just with shamanistic practices and breath work and stuff like that. So I kind of knew when that feeling came over me that I just needed to let that wave right through the body. And that's what I did. And I just tapped into this. There was more love than I've ever felt my entire life. And it just came from inside of here. And I was like,
Mm.
I am love. We're all love. Like this, this is it. While I was feeling electricity running through my entire body, and it just felt like I remembered who I was. So after that experience, I was like, if this is the only thing I get the entire retreat, like this is all I need. I
Mm.
didn't expect it to happen again. I thought it felt like a when people talk to like coming to God moment, I was like, this may just be once in a lifetime. So I just kept surrendering in my meditations, and the same thing just kept happening again and again. The first 2 days, we had 3 meditations each day, and I was just sitting there and convulsing really hard for like 3 minutes. If you would have seen me, you probably would have called an ambulance if you didn't know what was going on, because it looked like something in between an epileptic seizure and an orgasm.
Mm.
Uh, and then for like 2 minutes, I would just kind of like get a little bit like slower, and then I was just head banging again for 3 minutes. So it was just because when this Kundalini energy that we talk about, which for the listeners that are not familiar, it's really life force energy. That's like a lot of it is locked in at the spine, and it's enough life there in order to create a life that we do when we have children. But that energy can also be used for our vision, for our purpose, when we are able to draw that up all the way through the chakras into the pineal gland. And when we tap into that under the pineal gland, uh, there's different crystals. So when we actually pump fluid up by using breath and by using our muscles within our body, those two crystals can start going like this. And that can actually start creating an electromagnetic field that spans up to 3 meters outside of the body. And that was what was happening to me in that moment. So this Kundalini energy, when we speak of a Kundalini awakening, it's often people tapping into a bigger consciousness, a part of their consciousness that they might not have been in touch with before or might have been shut down. So it's often connected to more of a spiritual awakening, which was definitely what I felt that I had in that moment. I had believed in that there was something bigger, but I was still very locked in that like Western mind. Like I was very into biohacking, like more like can't be quantified. Like maybe it's real, but maybe also probably not. So, um, yeah, it was a very, very special experience for me. And then, yeah, I just really tapped into something new and meeting all these people that I was like, wow, they're just as like, into this as I am. And I did have a few people of those back at home, but not a lot. So just also really feeling like you come home like to the tribe and you're like, okay, we're in this together, which was an amazing feeling.
What prompted you to go back to more retreats?
Oh, I came back from that first retreat and I just felt like I had tapped into something different. And it was not in the way that I'm different from anyone else, but really just, I believe that this is something that everyone can tap into. And I want to learn how to help people do that. So I came back
Mm.
home from the first retreat and I started taking certifications and I became a Reiki master. I signed up for a sound healing certification. I started exploring a lot in this segment really that was something I hadn't dove that deep into. I actually, after the first retreat, I stopped all my subscription services and I wasn't watching a lot, but oftentimes if I found myself like, oh, I'm not feeling that well right now. So instead of like connecting to that feeling with it, I would disconnect by
Mm.
watching something else, or I was so tired that I didn't really have energy to do anything else. So I would just put on something, be very unconscious, watching something on a screen. And then I just knew that meditation would always be a better alternative. So I actually started meditating about 3 hours a day after the first retreat and stopped all my subscription services and all like was very, very conscious about what kind of input I took in. And I really felt the change within my life and really wanted just to go back because I felt such a huge level up after that first retreat. And actually, my second retreat, I started studying shamanism as well with the shaman. So I came straight from there and went to Joe, and I felt myself just going even deeper. And since I had I had meditated before the retreat, but I had cultivated such a deeper practice since that. So tapping in was so much easier, and I started to have a lot more mystical experiences. And the thing is that we can do all of these things back at home, but being in a room with 1,500 people that's coherent with their minds and their hearts, it's just really special. And the community at Joe as well, like a lot of beautiful people that just really see your light, see you for who you are, not where you come from, not what you look like, but who you really are on the inside. And I've met so many beautiful people through that community, and I keep meeting people like you, like Esther.
Mm.
So it's just really that's one of the things that keeps bringing me back as well, the people. Yeah.
It's beautiful. When you were doing the 3-hour meditations back home, were you doing them in the morning, just kind of whenever in the day? I'm curious. What was your practice?
I were usually meditating about 90 minutes in the morning. Then I would do like maybe half an hour in the middle of the day and an hour before I went to bed. So I find that for me, uh, up to 90 minutes, I do pretty well. After that, I can start getting a little bit restless. And obviously, sometimes we can train the body to sit longer. But I also believe that we create an intention in our mind and like meditate in order to work through the quantum, but that we can also work in the 3D. And I love doing that as well. So I want to be part of life and not sit still all day, even though can be conductive at
Hmm.
times as well. So actually before I went to the first Joe, I had no idea how I was going to sit still for an entire day. At that time my nervous system was still pretty dysregulated from all the heavy metals and a lot of different supplements I was on to kind of like regulate all of that. And then the meditation really helped with that as well. At that point before I went to the retreat, I was probably 3 times a week. I was probably working out twice a day because I had like so much uncontrollable energy. And then after a while, I would be so exhausted. I was just like, "Ugh, now I just need to lay down." So it was very up and down. And the meditation really helped with that as well.
Where did that energy come from in those times?
I think like because heavy metals, I that's what made me sick in the first place. And they are toxins to the nervous system. And the nervous system is what's like the messengers between the mind and the body. So when that system is not really functioning properly, everything can kind of go havoc within the body. And heavy metals are also degenerating brain regions. So about 6 years ago, I was barely able to read. So it was a lot of miscommunication within the body. And I also know that I have some genetics that if I don't take certain amounts of zinc and B6, I can actually get these kind of symptoms where I get a lot of energy and then very drained afterwards. It's kind of like going
Mm.
up and down like this. And I was very conscious about the way I ate and the way I slept and sunshine. And I had been into biohacking for a while, but it wasn't really until I was able to detox from a lot of these heavy metals that this got a lot better in combination with also the meditation. Because my body was then kind of like also trained to this state. I was like, that was what I was
Mhm.
expecting at the time. But it also made it really hard because it was even hard for me to make appointments because I would never know if I would be like almost like having a panic attack or I would just be exhausted. Um, so yeah, meditation definitely helped train my system back into just equilibrium and like I'm the master. I can really decide which state we're going to be in here. Yeah.
So 8 retreats in a year and a half. It sounds like deepening and deepening your practice, opening, learning, teaching others a lot of practices. What is your meditation practice today?
I usually meditate an hour to 90 minutes in the morning. That's like every day. And then sometimes if I feel like it, I'll do half an hour in the afternoon or half an hour in the evening. But it's not really that often. If I do other practices, it's more I'll lay down and I'll work somatically on myself, like actually doing energy work. I might listen into some music and then I work as a healer. So I will start moving energy. If I feel like something's stuck within my body, I'm not feeling right, so then I'll just lay down and or maybe combine it with some breath work. But my meditation practice right now is mostly in the morning. I still meditate with Joe mostly. And sometimes I just put on some of the music. He works with amazing artists like Remco and Arnett's. I love their music. So sometimes I'll just put on that track and I kind of go into my own meditation. But he has so many different ones and I love his meditation.
So working as a healer on yourself, can you describe that process and how you learned it? Just give us some background.
So, like I said, after I came home from the first Joe retreat, I was very curious. I'm like, what is this? And actually, ever since I was a child, I've had different because my family is like, I, my mom and dad took me to my first private meditation sessions when I was about 13, 14. And I've meditated a long time and been to different meditation retreats, but a very different practice than what we did with Joe or what we do with Joe. And ever since I was a child, I've had like we've been kind of like healers and different people telling me like or telling my mom like she's gifted, and my mom's just been like that's just part of who she is. And then when I was sick for a really long time, like I was so disconnected from myself. I didn't even feel happiness. I didn't really feel pain because I had so much pain in my body that I just disconnected from feeling at all. So my mom actually told me like there were 2 years where I didn't see you smile at all because I was just in pain. I was just really disconnecting from my body. So when I started getting into this work, it was just like I said, when I had the Kundalini awakening, it felt like a remembrance. And then after I came back home, I studied to become a Reiki master. I studied with different shamans. I took a sound healing certification because I used to be a singer as well. And that's where I found I find a lot of power and connection when I sing. So I went to a sound healing certification in Alicante for about 3 weeks. And that also really opened something up for me. But it was actually when I came back home and I sat and listened into one of Joe's meditations, I would often start to sing, just kind of like syncing with the music and just kind of getting into flow and just sitting there and starting to sing. And that was like one day I just sat down with the bowls and I started doing the same, and I was just tapping into something different. And it wasn't really me singing. I had never sung in that way before. It was just felt like something else was singing through me because I
Mm.
have a very open crown, third eye, and throat chakra in my human design as well. So I just kind of tap in and then it just flows through. So when I'm working with one person, I kind of tune into that person. Whereas when I'm working with an entire room, obviously I'm going to tune into the room. And usually I have like, okay, today we're working with connecting to your purpose or whatever the theme for the evening is. And then I usually combine that as well because when people are hopefully relaxed while I'm singing to them and bringing them the medicine of the music and the frequency, they also get hopefully into a slower brainwave state, whereas
Mm.
where the brain is very programmable. So I would also then talk to their higher self and their future self. while we go through the different chakras. Because I usually use the chakra bowl set where there's different frequencies that optimize the frequency of the different chakra. Because every single cell in our body holds frequency. And we know this through Joe's work as well. So when we can actually bring that cell back into resonance when vibrating with a healthy frequency, the body can come back into balance. And it's kind of like going to the chiropractor. You like have like someone just like really kind of knock it back in, and then the nervous system gets entrained to that frequency. So it doesn't always take a long time or a lot, but just for the body to kind of like remember, oh, okay, this is also a pattern that I can lean into. So, but some of my actually most powerful abilities are abilities that I downloaded just not through any teachings at all, but just through remembrance. I had tapped into this a little bit. It just looks like I'm kind of moving energy with my hand. To other people, I can't even explain it. I just feel the intricacy of the energy that's going on around me, and I work with kind of like looking like I'm working with in mandalas. So I had tapped into that a little bit. And then I was in Colombia, actually, after a Dr. Joe retreat. Very serendipitously, I ended up at an ayahuasca retreat that I had not planned for, never done any plant medicine before. And then I was introduced, it was like the last spot of the retreat. A friend of mine that I went to, or that I met at Dr. Joe, we had lunch on a Saturday, and she was telling me, like, I'm actually going to go to an ayahuasca retreat on Monday. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to join you for that. And then I hadn't done dieta, but I have a diet that's not too far away from dieta anyways. And I was just trusting that it was going to be fine. So I went there and I just connected. I was laying on my mattress when this happened, and I was feeling like I was a marionette from someone else. My hands were going in mandalas, and I was looking at myself like, this is interesting because I clearly know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm not doing any of this. So I was both very fascinated and very frightened at the same time. Because it was also, even though I had worked with shamans before, the shamans that I had been working with was not working with plant medicine. I have never done any kind of psychedelics before that. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, like anything like that. So I had tapped into higher states of consciousness before, but this was just different because it was like part of me was just turned off, where it's like, we're actually going to help you get beyond your ego and beyond anything you actually believe in this moment in order for you to receive this. So after that, we had 4 ceremonies in that retreat, and I was able to go around and actually assist other people as a healer during the retreat.
Wow.
And helping them when there were moments. I would have like the medicine tell me like, now you need to go to Phil. He's having a hard moment. Like he needs you to help him. And I would just kind of like stand there and work with my new abilities and kind of just let spirit guide me. And it was after that just integrated into my body. And now that's one of the most powerful healing tools that I use. So it's just, and the medicine also just really told me to trust, which I've been doing.
Sounds amazing. Your level of trust and surrender and courage are very inspirational. And
Yeah.
And in your remembrance, which seems to be perhaps past lives and kind of you're bringing back skills that you honed over, I don't know, millennia, perhaps, it's fascinating how things work in this way. I'm
Yeah.
curious, do you see now that it's downloaded, perhaps embodied in you, do you tap into these skills, gifts, like within a minute what is it like right now to be able to do that?
Yes, I feel like I'm always connected in a way. And then obviously sometimes I have times where I'm like, could be actually, I was watching, I don't know, do you know the show called The Chosen about Jesus and kind of like the miracles he was going through? I was watching that this summer, and then there is amazing music in it. So I was just kind of sitting there, and suddenly I started singing because the music was so beautiful, and I was just kind of like going with it. And then that's also often when I get into channel really fast when I start singing, because that's one of the fastest way I connect. And I was just like, okay, we need to shut this off. I need to lay down. I was going into ceremony, and sometimes I have more mystical moments just by myself in the woods without any medicine other than the medicine of nature and the medicine of just the breath or the voice. So now I just tap in pretty instantly. And sometimes when I work on people, I can feel if that's what they're needing or not. Actually, when I came to visit you, I came from another training in the woods as well at a mystic school in Georgia, which was a lot of channeling and energy work. We were also working with sound and healing. And one of the days we were taught another healing technique that I was going through on my partner. But I could just feel that he had a lot going on, especially in his first and second chakra. And I just needed to work there. I didn't know exactly what it was. I just felt that there's a lot of stuck energy here and I need to. So I started like the thing there is that they're very open to letting your expression come through, and they're trusting that when you're in channel and when you're in source, even though you're not following protocol, you're following your intuition, and that's the most important of all. So I was just doing that, and I could see that he was like opening his eyes in the middle of the healing, which is not very normal. But I was just, okay, maybe we're still learning. Maybe he's just curious about how I'm doing this compared to him or whatever. And then we finished the session and he was telling me like, I felt so much pain. Like, what were you doing? And I wasn't touching him at all. I was just working in the energetic field. But he had been severely abused by his mom, both sexually, physically, and every way possible as a kid for many years, and still had a lot of trauma around that. But even when he told me that, he was telling me also like, but don't worry about it. Just kind of like he wasn't ready to let that go. He wasn't ready to speak up about this is important. This is something that I'm ready to release and just kind of go. Oh, he was more like just pushing it away and just telling me it's not a big thing, which is a really big thing. And I felt that in his body. And that why he felt it so painful, because I was trying to pull something out that he was not ready to let go of. So I can never work on someone, like I can try to work on them like I was doing because I was feeling energy being stuck, but I can never do something if you're not willing to go there yourself. You're always being your own healer. Even when I'm working on you, we're working together. And when I'm doing that, I'm going into their field energetically. And in that moment, we are one. I feel all the pain that they're feeling in that moment. And that's also part of how I alchemize it, because I have a very emotional intuition. And I used to think like, oh, I'm not a channeler because I don't hear voices in my head. And then I realized there's so many different ways of channeling. And the way that I connect is through emotion. I feel everything. And I also have this just knowing. So it's when I trust that, that's when miracles and things that I just really happen. So this also 3 weeks at the school Delphi was also really, really reinforcing of that. And I think we were doing a night where we were doing channeling and just strangers that came into the school, and we were just supposed to give them a reading without knowing anything about them. We didn't really have any protocol either. It was just like get into channel and just tell them what they need to know for a half an hour. It's like, okay. So we had obviously trained different techniques for this, but it was a very big experiment in trust. And then mine went really well. And so my classmates afterwards like, oh, but you've probably done this before. You've been working as a healer for a while, right? And I told them like, no, I've never really done this before. And then it appeared to me like, actually, I've been doing this all my life. I've just called it giving advice, you know? Because I think sometimes we think this is so much more mystical, but when you just tap into that universal consciousness and that knowing that's actually available to you at all times, we have so much more information than we sometimes think we do. And when we just trust that and really lean into it, we can access all of it.
So beautiful and so inspiring.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I am wishing for myself to have a glimpse into your life, into being in your consciousness, into the observing the experiences that you're having and facilitating. It just sounds so magical and so powerful. Yeah, it sounds like a high level of being. And so I'm curious, when you said alchemize the pain, for example, so you're feeling somebody else's pain, you're getting into this unified field with another being, let's say. What is the process of alchemizing the pain? What does that look like, and how do you cleanse yourself of that pain?
When I'm working with a person, like I said, we become one. So I feel everything they're feeling. And that's also my way of helping them being in that pain, because healing can only happen when we allow ourselves to be in that pain. And a lot of people have a really hard time doing that. We usually want to push it away, get away from it, like distract ourselves from it, because we don't want to feel that. We think it's bad. But that's actually what's needed in order for us to alchemize it. So I hold space in order for them to access that as well and help them pull it out to be as comfortable as they can. And then I don't think I can really even explain it with words, but I'm tapped into source. I get into their field and I feel them so deeply. And then usually I'll have a lot of convulsions going through my body, like almost as if it's just like I'm shaking, and I'm usually my body temperature rises at least 5 degrees. I start kind of sweating. It's a lot of electricity and energy moving through the body, as well as me working with energy and actually pulling things out energetically, working with the energy around the body in the etheric field. So it's usually a combination with that. And then after that, we fill whatever's been drawn through and fill that with light. I might also often sing in order to actually imprint the right kind of patterns back into the body so they get a good frequency when the other thing's been drawn out. Sometimes I sing as well when I draw it out, because that can also invoke emotion. I think music is it's a language that anyone understands, no matter where they're from or what they're speaking. When you're singing in tones, like if it's like da 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 da, or if it's like, it's a very different kind of energy. So that can also be a way of them helping them actually getting into the emotion by me singing more of a sad song, or like singing the tones of what I feel in their body at that moment. And that's just coming from me being in their field. There's never anything planned. It's just like, okay, now we're one, and now I'm going to communicate what I feel to you in a song. And it's not with words, it's just with tones. We're in the same knowing, and they know that then. And often that helps access it as well. So yeah, I don't know if that's clear at all.
That gives a good perspective. It's so beautiful. I mean, in general, I saw some of your videos, and you shared with me some of the videos where you were singing in the ayahuasca retreat, and I've seen some of your videos singing with a bowl in nature. I mean, you look like an angel. I mean, you have the voice of an angel, and I'm thinking it's just so beautiful and so nurturing and healing. Your voice, as you said, it's kind of like you're opening, and you have this vessel with expression of frequency of. I mean, as you said, it's just kind of a signature of love in some way that is so nourishing and so life enhancing. And I'm thinking, what a gift to the world, and a gift to everybody who's around you, especially in those special moments of a transmuting. As you said, alchemizing. I'm thinking about transmuting the darkness into light,
Yes.
Which I think is a very I'm going to say important in the subjective duality of being in pain and discomfort. We have the singularity in the duality. And so what a gift, and what a gift I think it sounds to you to be in the observant vessel of how is this all happening through you, this electricity. I've had similar experiences most recently too. And I feel like when I was tapping into places deep in my heart chakra, and I got into deep, deep pain, like really leaned into it and kind of breathe and let it express. It was a lot of voltages. And we know that energy is not dissipating, but it felt like Pachamama or Mother Earth is taking my pain and transmuting it and kind of like neutralizing it. It's so relatable, but the level that you're doing it is so, what's the word for it? It's enticing. I'm like,
Yeah. Like we all have different things we're working, right? Like I'm working with my voice, and maybe your connection is nature. I connect very deeply to nature as well. But I think like there's all of these initiations we go throughout our life. And I had a friend of mine, because I hadn't been singing for many years before I had my kundalini awakening again. But I'm a trained singer. I sang with a private teacher for 7 years. I sang in a choir for 7 years. So I think, and there's a reason why that happened, why I was trained in that way in order to now use this gift when this awakening happened for me, in the same way that there's so many initiations that I went through having my heavy metal poisoning. I think I also needed to disassociate that deeply from my body in order to actually feel the duality of what that was, instead of feeling everything as deeply as I'm doing right now. So we're all having different tools. And I think, like you said, it's so beautiful to be able to sometimes just see someone experiencing God through me for the first time, and they've they've heard that word or the universe or a bigger consciousness or whatever you want to call it, but they just come out of it and they're like, what was that? And that's a gift to me as well. But it's it's also intense. It's really intense. And I know that I need to eat within like an hour and a half after I finish a session because it's very energetically draining, but it's also really giving. But it's depending on what I'm working with. I've had instances where I've felt more pain in my body through feeling someone else's pain than I have in my own. And I had this instance where I was working with a man and we were tapping into some really deep things, and I actually fell to my knees because it was so much pain running through my body. But that changed his life, and I was exhausted, like I was wiped the rest of the day. But it's worth it, because
Yeah,
when it's that level of transformation in the person, it's just I know that I'm here to give. Yeah. And then we expand our nervous system over time, being able to hold more. But I
mhm,
think some people say that, oh, after a while, you'll be trained enough to not feel this way. I don't really believe that because this frequency is so high that it's not something the human body is trained to live in over time. We can tap into those levels of consciousness and those high frequencies in order to bring light and alchemize other things and really change patterns. But when we come back down, it's kind of like a workout. You feel it on the body. You need to replenish, you need to rest, and then you can go again. You're probably a little bit stronger next time, but it's still going to be a challenge in a way.
yeah. When working with others, do you ask for permission, prepare them that this is going to be pretty painful, kind of prepare them to say, lean into the pain, it's going to be beneficial? What's the protocol there, if there is one?
It's usually not a lot of pain for people. It's more if they're not willing to let it go, if they're
Mhm.
like resisting it and like, oh, I can't let this pattern go within my body and I'm trying to drag it out and I'm meeting resistance, then it can get painful. But usually the pain is not very physical. It's more for them, the pain to actually feel the feelings that they might have been resisting for a long time. So it's emotional pain in a way, but it's also
Mhm.
usually really good when you feel someone holding you through that, feeling you actually being so present with you, singing to you, holding you in love, and actually infusing that place that used to be a dark place within you with love and letting you know that you're also safe to express anything and everything that you are. Because I think there's this romanticization of like the love and the light and the angels. And a lot of people see me and they're like, oh, you're always happy and you're singing and you're like, you're so angelic. And I'm like, the reason I'm able to hold this part of my expression is because I go really deep into my shadows, into my darkness, into my bullshit, and I'm not afraid to look at it. And I do it over and over and over again. And we all have that. And if we're neglecting that part of ourselves, we're not going to be able to get to the full expression of who we are because the level of darkness we're able to hold, it's also the level of light we'll be able to get to. So so I do warn people before we go into a session that just you might feel really happy, you might feel really sad. And the more you're able to hold of whatever's coming up, just trust that you're getting exactly what you need. And if it's too intense, you can always let me know. The door is always open. I'm not forcing anything you don't want to do. So when I have group classes, I'll let them know that the door is open and they can always walk out. I'll also let them know that they can raise their hand and I'll come over to them and actually uh, sit with them. I usually have someone else as well in the room who can be there to assist if I'm there singing. And then sometimes it can be confusing because it's not the mind that's actually transmuting in this. It's transmuting through the body and sometimes through very unconscious patterns. And sometimes you can come out of it, you've been crying, you've been shaking, and you've been like, what happened? People are kind of like confused because they're not exactly sure what was going on. And that's also the beauty of the work. You don't always have to know because we have a lot of imprinting that are not even our own that we can't rationalize around. It may be come from our ancestry. It may be karma. It might be coming down through our parents or things that we don't even remember. So, but this is the beauty of this work that it can actually access all of these states. And it's more important that you know who you want to be than knowing exactly what and then just allowing whatever comes up to actually come up and then trusting that okay, this is painful right now, but I'm ready to feel it all because I want to feel it all. I want to feel all the beauty, and in order to do that, I know that I need to feel some of this pain as well.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's has been my experience too with
wanting more light, higher level experiences, and kind of the rubber band effect of I had to go, and I keep going way, way lower in the levels of consciousness and experience to be in order to have the more beautiful ones. But it's also I'm gonna say enjoy, but I try to actually like be a lot in the pain a bunch of times, because this is part of the experience, like just being in the sensations of experience. The last few times that I've been doing those journeys, I'm really spending more time in there, because it's those also kind of, these too shall pass, but let's remember that. It's so fleeting,
Yeah.
the beauty and the pain. But I think I'm having more reverence to being that pain, and respect to the ancestral pain and the past life pain and this life's pain. And I was deflecting pain and running away from pain for most of my life, for sure. Like completely,
Me
like
too.
seeing it like peace out, yeah, like I don't want to turn
Peace
into it.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was conditioned in this way. I grew up in Israel, and there's a good amount of pain going on in my country right now. And it's tough. It's tough. I think there's a frequency and intensity of pain that we can, especially as you're saying, depends on the nervous system, depends on a lot of things, emotional resilience, support system, how much pain can we take and for how long. And so with the work that I'm doing too, it's like I'm kind of roller coastering. Like I'm not going to be in the peak for hours. Like I'm going to take a little breath, get down there. And when it's time, I'm going to dig again,
Yeah.
You were talking about filling in, so taking out, let's say, and releasing some places of darkness and then filling them with light. I'm wondering, one, kind of like that whole process, like what would happen if we don't fill a space with light? What do you think happens or could happen? Or perhaps, I don't have the knowledge on that, but I'm wondering what's the process there, and what do you think is happening or could happen?
Like it's almost going to be like a wound that's open, so anything can
Mhm.
really access if we're just leaving it open instead of actually, okay, now we're going to nurture this part. It's been something that's been released from the body. Now we need to close that. We need to heal that with love. And we want to make sure that we imprint it with the pattern that we actually do want instead of letting anything have access to it. Because sometimes when we're in like medicine, like actually plant medicine, we feel that access is very open. We feel like, or you can feel like, oh, now there's a lot going on around me. I have access to both a beautiful place and a really dark place, but that access is there at all times, and there's a lot of different frequencies around us at all times, and we can take on things from other people, we can take on things from different entities. So in order to make sure that we are fully whole in ourselves and that doesn't happen, that's also part of just closing it all together. And
Mhm.
we don't want to leave it up to chance. Like, okay, now you actually fully felt that feeling. We don't want to have someone else's feeling come in and make a whole kind of mess and chaos again. We want to make sure that you you feel whole after this. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there like a feeling when it's like it's been cemented and that area has been sealed?
It's just I just feel it in my body. It's a knowing at this point. So it's not really like any kind of seconds or technique. It depends on how much we worked, how much we drawn out, how much of a resonance, how easy access I have to the person. It's a lot of different things going on. And it's usually I'll work on someone for an hour. So we might draw out different things in different parts of the body, and I'll kind of go in and do that. And oh, okay, we go back to that place again because there was actually something more there. It's more of a longer process, really.
Cool. Considering your family has led you and nurtured you towards meditation at a young age, have you worked with some family members with the powers that you have been cultivating?
I worked on my mom a few times. It's actually been a really long time now. So I've been thinking like, oh, I want to do it again because she's been kind of seeing me from the beginning and then a few times after. And she's been like, whoa, like I really feel the difference as I've been cultivating more and learning more. But my brother and my father, they're not as open to this. And the thing is, like my mom, after I did my last session with her, she was like, oh my God, can you do this on your dad? Like, because like they're really supportive of me. They've seen me in deep depression, in immense pain, and like just for a lot of years being really sick. And now they see my life force. They see my ambition. They see my drive. They see my smile. Like they see that I'm really happy and living a very, very fulfilled life. And that's what they truly want from me. So they're very supportive, but still I can't do something for anyone who's not believing in it or who I don't have access to. And even though I love my family and they're so supportive, they're still not necessarily fully in on this. At least the masculine part. My mom's very supportive, and she also she doesn't have all these practices. She meditates, but she just have a connection to God. I don't think she even calls it that, but she's always in love. Like, even she just comes from a place of love, like a very nurturing, motherly archetype in that way. And my dad's in contact with God as well. He doesn't necessarily call it that, but he'll cultivate that relationship through being outside in nature. That's his church. That's when he's fully connected to himself, to everything around him. And when he's the most playful, the most happy. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes we can really mystify this and think that, oh, you need to be a healer in order to have this. But I think we can all find this in different places in our life where we're like, where am I the most connected? Where do I feel connected to my joy, to my true self, where there is no expectations, no, and I'm not pretending to be anyone else, and I can just be everything and who I truly am. And that's going to be different for all of us. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
I do have an aunt who's very into astrology, very supportive of this, that I do speak to a little bit about this. I actually borrowed her house this summer. Beautiful place. She has like mantles out on the property where there's like Buddhas, and there's books. She has books about astrology and shamanism, and she's been into this for a really long time. We actually had a conversation this summer where she told me, like, yeah, when I was 5 years old, I was looking up at the stars and I was like, why am I here when I come from there?
Wow.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I have some people in my bigger family who's definitely into this.
Does your aunt know where she's from in terms of star seeds? I know a bunch of people know where they're from and that kind of stuff.
The Pleiadians, I believe. Yeah.
What about you? Do you know your origins?
I actually don't. I feel I really like being on Earth. There's a lot of people in this realm who think like, oh, like I should be on this planet, I should be on that planet. I know that in this life, I'm here to be human and to bring the divine to Earth. I'm not here to be in another, like, we can go to other dimensions and we can touch up on beautiful things. But this life that I'm living here, that's what's happening in this life. And I'm here to bring the divine to Earth, to help people step into the new era that we're really getting into right now through accessing these higher states of consciousness. And I also have channels where I do have a galactic channel. I do light language, and one of them is galactic. But I've had a very intense experience with that before, where it was so intense that it almost kind of took over my body. So I haven't been cultivating it as much since that happened. Not because I was wondering, is this conducive to what I want to do? Is it just a distraction? There's a lot of things we can access out there. And not everything is necessarily part of us helping the world. It could just be something you might want to play with. But I'm here to be a healer, and I'm here to really cultivate the things that I want to help. So I've been slowly getting back into that as well. And actually, it was my second ayahuasca ceremony, my first retreat. I encountered something called the Council of 12. And at that time, I was seeing people between the dimension. I was brought up to this council, and I didn't know it was a thing at the time. I just knew that was the kind of people that I encountered. I hadn't heard about them before. And they really told me if you want to do this work, you need to get in line. You need to respect these traditions, and you need to get the fucking line. It was just like a very clear message. Like, you can have a seat at this table, you can do this work very deeply, but you need to have respect and reverence for the work that you're doing. This is not magic to play with. This is real magic. And if you want to have access to this, we'll grant it, but we need to know that you respect this work. And that was the ceremony that was mind-blowing for me. I was feeling my mind being imprinted with numbers, which just in the ceremony, I was laying there and thought I was going to be psychotic for the rest of my life. I was like, why did I do this to myself? What a stupid idiot I am. Like, I'm going to be I was just going over this in my head. But that ceremony was so necessary for me to just experience something I could never have comprehended while being in my ego and my mind. And that also really just changed my worldview forever. So after that, now I have a mentor in that council, and it's not something I work with very often. but I'm still cultivating a relationship with, and I'm kind of still getting to know. And do you know Dolores Cannon?
Yes.
Yes. Like about 4 months after that retreat, I read one of her books, and she do a lot of past life regressions. And in that book, she was speaking about the Council of 12 and how people were meeting this council. And I was like, oh my God, that's the council that I met in my ceremony. I just thought that was like some people that I met. I didn't know it was a thing. So that made me get more curious about it. And it was actually about 2 months ago, I actually had a Joe retreat that I got a mentor at the council. And so I'm slowly starting to work with her a little bit. But
I don't know much about
yeah.
this council. So are we talking about different dimension
I
beings? Do you know what we're
I don't
talking
know
about?
a lot about it either, and I'm still getting to learn this. It's not something I'm also reading too much about because I want to have my own experience of it, and it was not something I read about and then like sought out. It was just something that came to me. And like I don't want to call it aliens necessarily because to me that's still something I'm like I think we can get into like we see movies and we make this like very
Mhm.
like it's a certain way, whereas I think we live in a multidimensional reality where there's always different beings living in different dimension next to us at every time. And it sounds very mystical when we want to put on these green faces and we want to make them super big and we want to like I think that's kind of like the little boy or girl in us which want to make it into a movie. To me, it's like these are all different frequencies and energies that we will interpret in slightly different ways when we get that information into our mind. So exactly what it looks like is not the most important to me. I just feel the depth of their wisdom and their teachings and the way I'm still learning and it's still pretty new to me. So
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of knowledge or wisdom to share yet. I just know that they're slightly taking me on to learn from them.
Mm. Uh, Curious though, in this ceremony, do you perceive that there are 12 entities? Do you have a vision that is visual? How did you know there are 12, perhaps a council of 12?
Like I said, my strongest emotion, like strongest channel is feeling. So I don't even know for people that don't have that how I can perceive that, but it's a knowing and a feeling. And when I'm on plant medicine, my visuals are always also stronger. And I have after doing this work for a long time, my visuals are also a lot stronger than they used to be because I think we can actually work on all of these different senses. And now I have a lot more visual meditations than I used to. I can also sometimes when I work on people doing healing work, I can see things from past life or memories that are coming up that I also convey to them afterwards. As that happened, I saw them, I felt them, I spoke to them, and it was the same ceremony where I downloaded the abilities that I'm working with now. It was a very intense ceremony where I was also running through a pattern where that was what led up to this. I was running through a pattern where I was dying over and over, where I was doing the same thing every single life, which led to a death. And it wasn't until I changed that, then I could felt my entire brain started recoding. And then I was brought up to this council. So yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So yeah, it was at the moment it was terrifying and mind blowing. And I don't think, yeah, like plant medicine, as you know, is not something to play with. And I'm very glad that I had such a deep meditation practice before I went into it, that I knew that I'm not my mind and everything is temporary. Because I think I've also had those experiences when I'm in ceremony where I've gone into really dark places. And I'm actually, even in the moment, I've been grateful for where it's led me because I knew that everything is temporary and there's clearly something I need to work it through in here. And then maybe I needed to come back to that mantra every 5 seconds where it's like, everything is temporary. And then that lingers for like 2 seconds. And then just kind of need to come back to it. But still, it's intense. So just knowing that we're not our minds when we go into that place, I think is really important.
Totally agree, and totally beautiful that he had those skills. I mean, it sounds like you really squeezed the juice from starting Dr. Joe and the ayahuasca retreat. You were so ready and ripe to have,
Yeah.
I would say, pretty intense mystical openings that are so quickly are converting into huge service in such a
And that,
really it's very short time.
but it feels like I said, like, because that's the thing. And I'm a pretty intense person. When I dive into something, I dive all in. So I've been, like you can tell, I've been to 8 Joe retreats. I've been to 2 ayahuasca retreats the past year. I've been doing a lot of different certifications and traveling to different masters and retreats to learn from them. But I also had a moment, that was my second retreat, where I was really working with the wind. And really, I was being challenged harder than I've ever been with any element or through any kind of ceremony before. And I was being just getting to hold more than I ever have. And I was like, I can hold more. I can hold more. I can hold more. And I could just feel us working together. And then just like all of that just integrated into my body. Because that's what I feel when I'm on ayahuasca. I take a very small dose compared to the others because I'm already very open, already very sensitive. If I take too much, I'm just going to lay there tripping and it's not going to really lead to a conductive storyline. And that's not what I want to do. So I find that it's like a long, hard spiritual workout, and I can level up for what seems like lifetimes in one ceremony because you're able to work in different dimensions at the same time, and your brain just operates in a very different way than what it usually does, which is interesting. I can stand there, do healing work on someone while I sing, while I'm being mentored in a different dimension, and while I'm speaking to someone over at the other place. It's very interesting, which is not something I'm doing very regularly without the medicine. It's a very something to have a lot of reverence over because it is a fast upgrade. And if we're not able to integrate that afterwards, that's the most important part, the integration. And a lot of people travel to a plant medicine ceremony and they just think they're going to have a breakthrough. And then that's going to be the change of their life. The change is what happens afterwards when you come back home. How do you integrate that back into your life? You can be in light and love and you're on some kind of medicine, and then you come back home and you keep going into the same patterns. You keep pulling your finger up to someone in traffic. Like this is the work we do every day. And I think that's the most important part, instead of just like going to a retreat or going really deep when we're in ceremony, but really bringing that back home to ourselves wherever we go and whatever we're doing in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I was just describing a plant medicine ceremony to somebody as a surgery. Like you come in for the surgery, it may be okay, it may be very painful, but it's like you're gonna get a new knee, and now when you're getting to walk and everything else that snowballs from doing the PT in terms of the integration in that way. So yeah, definitely
That's
with you there.
beautiful.
I'm curious. You're about to launch, or you launched the book? Tell me in the audience
The
about it.
The book is coming out in January, so it's only in Norwegian for now, but I'm actually looking for an agent for the international market at the moment. But it's called, in Norwegian, it's the equivalent to like, Bring Out Your Innate Power. And it's all about, it's a book that's it's a pretty thick book. My editor first told me that, you've written 4 books in one. I was like, yeah,
Wow.
I wanted it to be a Bible. I wanted it to be a place where you can find everything you need. So it's chapters there on how to eat yourself smarter, how to optimize your work routine, your workout routine, your sleep, your home. Like there's a lot of different chapters where you can kind of like, you can go in and read only that chapter. If you only struggle with sleep, you have your training and nutrition down, but you want to get curious about sleep, you can go in there and read that chapter. So since I was sick for such a long time and people couldn't really help me, not necessarily, especially the first 4 years, it was just a lot of trying to figure stuff out. You get really curious yourself. So I spent a lot of time diving into research. In the beginning, I could barely read, so I started listening to podcasts. But after a while, I started reading, and this was my full-time job. My doctors actually told me like 9 out of 10 people would not have gotten well after being as sick as you did. It's only because you dedicated your life to this. You did so much more than we ever asked you to do. And so this is the book that I kind of wish I had 10 years ago before I got sick, before I started my journey. So it's because I've read a lot of different books, like from people that have researchers that like have written 500 pages about sleep. Several of those books. I love nerding on that. Most people don't, and they don't want to take the time to do that, even if they struggle with it. So I've kind of taken all that knowledge from different kind of rounds in this field into a chapter where this is how it works. This is circadian rhythm. This is what's happening in the body. And this is what you need in order to optimize. So the book is conveyed in my voice, where it's like I'm telling some personal stories. I am like using some humor, but it's also heavy on the biology and neurochemistry. So you definitely need to be interested in order to get through it, but you don't need any pre-knowledge to read it. And it's also sections on the sides where it's like, if you actually want to go deeper into this, not necessarily something everyone want to do, you could jump into that. So that's been a big project, which I'm excited to get done. Yeah.
How long have you been working on this book?
This is work that I've been integrating in my life for a long time. So the book kind of flew out of me in a way. I didn't know how to you put pen to paper and you that's when I realized I know after learning more about this, I get in channel when I write as well. So sometimes that's and I often do it after I really connect to my body. Often after I work out, I get into channel. So usually what I'll do is I'll sit straight down to write after I move my body. And then sometimes, especially if I've been spending time at my parents' house, my mom's like, hey, you need to come clean this up. I'm like, not right now. Can I do that in 30 minutes, an hour? And my mom's like, you need to do it now. I'm like, no. What's coming through is happening right now. It's not happening in an hour. It's happening now. So I was writing every day, and even if it was Christmas Eve, if it was my birthday, I think that's the thing about writing a book. It seems like a huge project, but if you just move a little bit every day and look at every piece as an article in a way, then at some point you're going to get to a book. So, and definitely I wrote one chapter at the time. So maybe the first draft were 5 months ish, but then I had about 5 people that are in this industry in nutrition and more medicine. They read through it and gave me feedback. And then the feedback was really good. So I didn't really change a lot after that. But initially I probably had 5 times of what's actually in the book right now. And it's still 400 pages. And we cut one chapter and about 65 of the recipes. So it's still a pretty thick book. Wow. Yeah. But the thing was, the project, I didn't pitch any publication houses. I just let it lay there for a while because I knew that this book is done, but I'm not ready to bring it out to the world. I'm not the person that I need to be in order to actually get this project through in the way that I wanted to. Because I was still not fully in touch with my life force. I knew all of these things because I've been into biohacking and nutrition for such a long time. So the book is really more in that topic. The last topic is about how to get in touch with your power, what's your purpose, and more of that. But it is a book that's more on the scientific. So for the listeners, listening to the interview up until now, they probably just think I'm a fairy running around in the forest and singing and working with spirits. But I love my analytical mind as well. I love to really nerd out on the science and the biochemistry and the neurochemistry. And that was also why it was really challenging at first when all of these other things opened, because you can't really rationalize around it. And I found a lot of my identity kind of being connected to that. I needed to understand it. So it's been also a process of just disconnecting from that and just really, I know this to be true. And if other people don't understand, that's fine. But I also find that when we are so deeply in integrity in our work and we really lead with love, we lead with our vision and our purpose, other people feel that. And even though they don't necessarily always understand, a lot of people do respect it. And that's really something I think is beautiful.
Super beautiful. I'm curious. So you write for 5 months, the first draft. You said there are 1,000 sources or about?
Yes.
Or a lot of sources?
998-ish. Yeah. So that took almost at least 4 months to just run through all of the sources and make sure that was right. And that was a long process as well. Then I spent about 6 months developing recipes, which a lot of them didn't even end up in the book. But yeah, so yeah, it takes time.
I'm curious. I mean, I synthesize a lot of information too, but I'm curious about this book writing personally. And so you get into flow, you're writing, and you've learned so many practices and knowledge on the human body and beyond. So you're writing it out, and then you're looking for the sources, reminding yourself where you found some of these wisdom. What's the process of connecting the flow with the sourcing, the backing up, the credibility?
That's a really good question, and I kind of think I'm probably going to do that a little bit different the next time. Because for me, the thing is that when I get in channel, I just need to write. And sometimes it might be 3 pages. That's not going to be good for anything, but that's how I write good. But I'm actually just letting it flow through. So I would usually get up in the morning, meditate, and then write for an hour, work out, go back and do some more writing. Then I would go out for a walk while what I would listen into either an audiobook or a podcast where I would actually listen into the topic. Even though it was something I knew, sometimes you get new ideas, new angles, you're reminded of a study, something that's important. And then I would usually go back and research. I would take notes while I was walking and then usually be something I wanted to research as part of it. So, and then with the sources, sometimes I would do it like after I had written like more 3 pages and I was like, oh, what needs sourcing here? And then I would actually also go through different people I had learned from that I know have deep integrity in their work, like from, for example, like Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey, like the biohackers from Finland, like a lot of those different people that I already have the book. So, and I would actually go in and see when they're referring to the same things that I'm actually writing about, what kind of studies are they referring to? I would go and look at that study. I would read through it. I'm like, oh, this is legit. This is something I can put in my book. So that was also part of how I sourced it. And then I would sit in PubMed and just geek out.
Wow. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's quite the process. And you have quite sounds like the intellectual abilities to sit down and the patience there too. So kudos to you.
The thing is, like I told you, like I didn't know how I was going to sit still for Joe's retreat. So I sit for an hour, then I go for a workout. I sit and write for another hour, then I go for a walk. Then I'll go back and I sit and write for an hour and then it's kind of like that on and off. And then I go into the sauna and I can feel my brain kind of like really more BDNF and I can feel like those cardiovascular things really turning on. So I have more creativity. I know maybe like 45 minutes after that. And then so I kind of like leveled my life to like, I knew the different kind of times during the day where I would have more focus. And then as long as you move the needle a little bit every day, like that's the most important because yeah, at least to me, that's what really worked.
It sounds like you really combined what you learned and your intuition in a really nice way, which is, I think it's very unique. And like you're disciplined and also you're going with the flow of your energy and putting the knowledge that you have, it kind of pops back up organically. Yeah. So it's
That's
amazing.
what I hope coming through in the book as well, in a way where people that are not necessarily reading biology or neurochemistry or super nerdy biohackers, they can still kind of like, oh, there's actually a little bit of a story here. She's actually sometimes a little bit funny. And it's more of also, it's not just the biochemistry and the neurochemistry as if you feel like you're reading a textbook, but it's more, hopefully, more fun and also more, there's a lot of pictures. The design is beautiful. I worked with an amazing designer and some amazing photographers. So that really the book has become really beautiful and also in the way where you don't need to read everything. You can kind of go in. It's more like a Bible. You'll have it in your bookshelf and you'll pull it out if it's, oh, I'm wondering this about sleep. I'm wondering this about food. And it's so much information that you're not going to remember it all. No one's expecting you to do that, but it's something you'll have hopefully in your bookshelf for years and you pull it out and you can get an answer.
And you call it a Bible, and I'm just gonna rephrase it in my mind for the audience. Sounds like a manual where you can pull up. You're dealing with something. You're going straight to that. It doesn't really matter if we remember everything, but for now, this is what you want to improve on or just learn about and dive in. And it sounds amazing. So, what are your aspirations for the book? What would be a great outcome of releasing this book, January 2024? What happens next?
So I really want this to be more of like a launch pad for people to know all. Like this is the book that I wish I had 10 years ago. I would love to get more into speaking. I want to start hosting more retreats. I want to also really, I just want people to know this because the thing is that we often think we need to overcomplicate things so much. And then just the power of nature, of sunlight, of real food. But actually, sometimes we need to understand the science behind that in order to believe it. And we can have things, we can take cold showers and ice baths and saunas and all that. And I love that part as well. That's also in the book. But the most important thing for me is for people to actually get an understanding of their self, of their body, and realize that they're their own guru. Instead of actually, there's so much outsourcing of power these days, especially with all the information that's coming through on social media, where it's like, you can get a new tip, a new trend every day. And people are so confused. So in order for them to get a little more knowledge, in order for them to actually trust that if I do this over a little bit of amount of time, things are going to get better in this segment of my life and get some understanding of it. So, and when it comes to that, like aspirations of what I want to gain from it, it's a passion project in a way. And I don't expect it to make any money. I don't expect it to, I really want it to reach as many people as possible. But the thing is that I've been really deep in the nutrition and biohacking segment, and now I'm really stepping into the path of the healer. So, and this book is really more of like the nutrition, the biohacking, and all of that. And the thing is that I think we really need to hone down and have balance within the body before we can access a higher state of consciousness. So this is kind of like the first level for people to, we can want to be spiritual, we can want to access higher connections. And some people actually can't, even though they treat their body like shit just because they're very connected. But for most people, that's not going to happen. We need to have a clean vessel in order for us to actually access that higher consciousness. So I just wanted to really help people to be a way for them to be less confused, to have more trust and that they know what they're doing and really feel powerful within themselves.
Super beautiful. And I see a parallel with Joe's work as well, with the level of work and seeing the science and backed up by blood work, etc. And I think there's a lot of power in I think Joe calls it mysticism in the scientific or contemporary scientific language, and also touches on the body as the instrument of consciousness, and you're really bringing in all of these worlds together, which sounds like your podcast, your mission, your life, really integrating everything, which is absolutely phenomenal.
And I think that's the thing. We're here to do both. We're here to be in this human body, and that's like, let's not neglect that. Let's optimize for that in order to also be able to access the spiritual. Because yeah, like you said, this is the vessel. And what initially drew me to Joe's work as well was the science. No one could have told me about the experience I was going to have there in words. I was super curious about the science at that point, and just that really resonated with me. Still does. But at some point, it's like you feel something that's so much bigger than yourself that doesn't really matter as much anymore. You feel the love, you feel the truth, you feel something that can't be necessarily explained with science. And maybe like Joe was able to do some of that. He can actually transmute some of it into science, which is beautiful. And I think we're still learning a lot about this. And for me, it's more also like sometimes we think that if we don't have the answer, it means it's not true. Or if we can't quantify it, it means it doesn't exist. And I think that's very neglective. There's going to be things that we think are not true right now, that 20 years we're going to have hardcore science that's going to prove that it's right. So instead of being so black and white in our thinking, I think it's like, we have science, we can document this. This is great. We can actually move forwards in ways we might not be able to in the medical systems without the science. But there's also power in the things that we just know within our bodies, and not neglecting that, and actually really leaning in and trusting in when it's in a personal level where we have the reverence and the capability to do that for ourselves.
Super beautiful. So you're in Switzerland now, living in Switzerland. I'd love to hear about this next chapter and why you chose the location you chose.
It's very much still unknown. I've probably been here for about 4 weeks. I moved in the beginning of September, and then like the 14th or 13th of December, I went to the US and was there for about 6 weeks. And then now I'm back here again for a few weeks. It's still very much settling in, but I just knew for a while, probably sometime since last fall, that I just wanted to move because I love Norway and it's a beautiful country. I have a lot of friends there, obviously in my family, but I was also really expanding my consciousness at that point. And the thing is, a lot of the Nordic countries, they are very head driven. Also the US in a bit of a way. And everything needs to be quantified. Everything's very black and white. And there's not, do have somewhat of a spiritual community and people that are into the same things that I am. Very grateful for that. But it's still, the collective consciousness is not there. And you feel that when you're back at home. So whereas when I go to Colombia, for example, they do everything from the heart. And it's a very different energy. Also very chaotic, because if you do everything from the heart, then there's no structure. it's gonna get chaotic. So there's definitely advantages about having the mind involved as well. But I just felt that I needed a different kind of environment. I wanted to be even closer to nature, a place where I could be in nature a bigger part of the year, where it doesn't get so cold, where it doesn't get so dark. I love to go to the mountains and ski, but I don't need it to be cold and dark for 6 months, you know? So I was at that point just kind of starting to put that into my meditations, like having a house and like where I would live. And then I was traveling a lot, meeting a lot of interesting people at that point. So I was like, I was single. I was like, maybe I'll meet someone, or maybe I'll get a lot of friends somewhere, or maybe I'll just find this place that I'll fall in love with. And then I was just kind of, was when I came back from Colombia in May, and I just realized, you know what? I can't wait for anyone else. I just need to like take this into action myself. I'm the creator of my own reality, and I'm just going to create the life that I really want to live. So I went to Switzerland, and I came to the city that I'm living in now, Lugano, and it just felt like I had lived here before. It was just kind of a remembrance. Their mountains here are gorgeous. I have a mountains just the back of my house that I can just hike up from. It's like 200 meters from my house that the path starts. I have a vineyard in my garden. It's just the most connected place. And I had my parents come down here and help me move in, and they were here for about 5 days. And then the night after my parents left, I could just feel the house started to working on me. It's like, okay, now it's just the two of us. I was just like, okay,
Wow.
amazing. That's a lot of knowledge and wisdom in this place. And I think we can be taught by the elements, because in a way we are the elements. We are the wind, we are the earth, we are the water. We're all one. So not necessarily things always need to be spoken. It can be an energetic transfer, things like that. So this chapter is still very much in the unknown. I have no idea if I'm going to be here for 2 years or 10 years, or I just knew sometimes you also have this divine pull where it's just like, you're gonna, you just know, and you just don't know exactly what is going to happen. You just know that this is the next step. And for now, it's been usually, for me, I had a knowing of like 3 months in advance. And then it's hard for me to plan a lot of things further than that. I have some things that I know that I'm going to do, but exactly what timeline it's going to work out, I don't always know, because I'm getting introduced to beautiful people that I could never have planned to come into my life, that introduced me to opportunities that I didn't even ask for, because they see something within me that I haven't maybe even seen myself yet. And also, as you can probably tell, I've had a really rapid transformation within the past 1.5 years, and that still keeps propelling forward. So I don't want to make decisions today about what's going to happen in 6 months based on the version I am today, when I know I'm going to be a different person 6 months from now. I'm still going to be the same person, but it's an evolved version of who I am. So I think for now, we'll see. It's really an experiment, and really being in the unknown, and it's interesting. I really feel like this place is like, it's almost like it's a long breath out in a way that I can ground. And I'm still traveling quite a lot. I have a pretty international network, so I do have friends come and visit me. But I'm also, since I'm traveling so much, when I come back home, I also really like to like get into creative mode and just kind of be a little bit of a hermit and just work on my projects, and really not have anyone else's energy be a huge part of it, in order for me to just really deep on what I'm working on. So we'll see. We'll see.
Super cool. Super,
Yeah.
super cool. It's super exciting. You're embracing the unknown and being open, and I love the attitude and the energy. To come to a close to this conversation, I know you mentioned a bunch of, we're going to call, mind and heart blowing experiences that you've had, especially in the past year and a half. But I wonder if there's a specific experience that blew your mind, blew your heart recently, that you'd like to share with our audience as we're parting ways.
Yeah. I definitely mentioned some of them already. That's been very powerful. But when I was at Delphi, the school that I told you about just before we met a few weeks ago, we were doing this channeling called the size scan, which is really a medical. So you're going to go through the different organs of the body. You're going to tell them what's going on. So I was working with a German man, and the only thing he provided me was a name a city and an age. I didn't see any picture. I didn't get to know their relation. That was all I got. So when I heard that we were going to do this praxis, I was like, oh shit, this is going to be either, if it's on or if it's off. Like, because we were doing between a 45-minute and a 1-hour reading on this. So you just really trust source, which is what I did. I got into the body. We moved through the different organs. I was telling him about how the pituitary adrenal axis were out of line. She was dealing with a lot of stress. She needed to have different hormones tested, what was going on in her digestive system. So because I do know a lot of biology and neurochemistry, so I could give him specific hormones that I wanted her to have tested. I could tell him about the relation to different minerals and vitamins in relation to organs or things that was out of balance. So when we finished, because he was not supposed to give me any yes or no's during the channeling at all, it was just supposed to be he was just be quiet, really, for me to just be in channel and not give me any clues if I was saying something right or wrong. So I couldn't get out of it, and I was like, how was it? Did it resonate? And he was like, you could have painted her. This is her to a T. She used to be a principal. She quits her job recently because there was so much stress going on. Her hormones, she's already been testing a few of these, but I'm going to make sure she tests that. It's like the minerals that I just told him. It's like she just started taking 2 of those. It was just, everything was just spot on. And I think that was just, I've had those experiences with Source before, but this is medical work. Like I'm used to being very in my head about all of these things, and then just letting really trust channel to come through. And that when we tap into universal consciousness, we can tap into whoever we want at whatever time. And that was just really, really eye-opening on a different level and very humbling and really cool.
Wow. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like quite the experience and quite the skills. Wow. Hat to you for doing this work and being able to provide this service. I mean, huge awe of what you're cultivating and how you're showing up. You're bringing so many worlds together and with a big smile on your face. And also, I know as you were talking about, and from our interaction before, diving into the more ugly and difficult places in order to be in this level of service and to be providing more light, channeling more light and expanding the light within this, as you said, this earth. And I think that's a very honorable mission in life to live. So lots of appreciation and lots of gratitude for you.
Thank you.
Cecilie.
Likewise. Thank you for having me on and letting us have this conversation. And I hope we got to inspire some people today.
I'm sure we did. I will add the links in the show notes to your website, your Instagram, to your upcoming book in Norwegian at the moment, perhaps in 2024, 2025 or so forth, in other languages, and anything else that we mentioned in here that can be useful, whether those are some of the mystical schools and Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. We'll see what else we talked about I'm going to link into. Is there any specific place besides the website and Instagram or somewhere else that we can send people to connect with you, to work with you, to hear about your retreats?
I'm most active on Instagram. I usually post everything there, and then I'll have a layout of my offerings and my retreats. If the book has come out in another language by them, they'll also see it on my website. So yeah, I'm definitely most active on Instagram, and then the webpage is there with all my contact emails and everything with people work.
Phenomenal. Cecilie, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening. Take care until the next one. Aho.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope this conversation has supported your journey to wholeness. For full show notes and to explore all my projects, visit yonihavana.com. If you found the show helpful, please leave a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support helps spread awareness, healing, and awakening to others. Much love and gratitude.